Nice to see you. What brings everybody out today? Something going on? Oh, I know. Just wait. Gets better. That's the youngest guy. They're all bigger than me.
He said he's coming, so
Okay.
he'll be 1 second.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome to St. Andrew's United Church. It is good to have you here. It is good to be gathered. These are important things to do together as a community, so on behalf of the family, thank you for coming and spending this time. I love that you're a chatty bunch and you have a beautiful vibe going on among you, so maybe we won't do quite as chatty during the service, but I'm sure there's lots of stories to share and beautiful things to say, so you do what you need to do. Friends, we have gathered here to celebrate the life of Veda Hotel. We gather today to give thanks for her life, and we know that being surrounded by those who love her means to offer to each other our love and support and strength. I'm Reverend Eric. I'm good to be called just Eric, but around this place most people will call me Reverend Eric, and I'm the minister here at St. Andrew's United Church. I'm going to remind our friends in the front row, there's cords that go right underneath you, and if you kick them out, you're going to cut off the live feed, and people at home are not going to be able to see. No pressure. I want to express my gratitude and absolute privilege for being asked to preside at this celebration of life service. And you're chatting, that's what it feels like. That's what it should be, is a celebration of life. I'll start by saying I didn't know Veda very well, but I did meet her several times here on Sunday morning worship. Her favorite spot was near the back and off to the right-hand side. So just in front of the pole, there's a little group of you sitting around there. And you know what? You might feel some beautiful energy around you as you sit in that space. And maybe we all will, but especially that was her spot. Always a smiling face, always a beautiful presence. And there's a little group of ladies that she connected with that sat in the very back pew afterwards and would have a tea or coffee and cookies and just hang out. Veda loved the music here, and how could you not? We actually have a full jazz band that plays all the time. I'm not doing a promo. I'm just letting you know that she loved the music. She loved the outreach things that happened in this place, and found herself a home. So we're grateful that she found a home for such a short period of time. But like all of us, we wish it could have been a little longer. As a United Church minister, my faith calls me to share with you the message that in life, in death, and in life beyond death, God is with us. We are not alone. Thanks be to God. Once there was someone who was walking along the road, and people wondered who he was. And so one day, someone simply asked, and he responded, "I am the light." I'm going to hand off this candle to, and I want to make sure you have your names correct, Juliet and Elifa, right? I'm going to bring it down to you, the light from the Christ candle. And in a moment, I'll get you to light the memorial candle right there. So why don't you just stand close by it? Let me share a few words first. Some of the roles that we celebrate today in remembering Veda are mother, sister, sister-in-law, grandma, an auntie, a cousin, and a dear friend. So whoever Veda is to you, we light this memory candle in memory of her as we celebrate her life together this day. And you can just blow that one out and just lay it there behind. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to invite you to pray with me, and I invite you to pray however it is that you pray. Some of us has been taught as children or adults to put our hands together a certain way or to close our eyes or bow our heads. And some just remain in a posture of openness, focusing on the beauty and light and life all around you. So I invite you to pray however it is that you pray, and to envision God in your head however it is that you envision God, knowing that God is love. And together we pray. Loving God, creator of all life, help us to accept death as a part of life, trusting in your great goodness and your great love for each one of us. We feel now, God, that pain of parting with a loved one, and we rejoice that we were privileged to experience life with Veda. We entrust Veda to you in death, God, as in life you entrusted her to us. This we pray in sincerity and in hope. And all God's beautiful people said, Amen. You're going to get to hear a eulogy and from some speakers of the family. So Carla's going to go first, and then Charles, and then Tessa and Henry, and then Dorothy. So in that order, come on up here. This is all yours, and let's get you settled in so you can share some beautiful things with your people. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? There we go. Okay. Wow. I just want to acknowledge this room. Just take a look around. I'm overwhelmed, actually, by how many people are here. I'm not surprised, but I'm a little overwhelmed. When you get to be 86 years old, as Veda was, your circle, theoretically starts to shrink, but not for Veda. This is so emblematic of who she was. She was an irrepressible, connective force. And whether you knew her for all of your life, like some of you in this room, or whether you only knew her for 7 or 8 months, like some of you in this room, whether you have had hundreds of conversations with her, or whether you've only had one, she left a lasting impression. She made a mark, and this is a sort of testament to that. She would, as the Reverend has said, she might have been sitting in the back, but if she were here, she would just be thrilled to see you all. Other than me saying her real age out loudness just now, she would be she would be just thrilled, and she would be beaming with that twinkle in her eye, and that beaming smile that she had. So, where to begin with Veda? She was so very proud of where she had come from, her Manitoba roots. She was the oldest of 4 younger brothers. She grew up on a farm, and she had a very large family. She would tell us often that she had 40, and she would make us watch the fingers, 40 first cousins, like it was impossible. And she said that her family home, my Grandpa Carl and Grandma May, were the place where people gathered, where the extended family came to come together to break bread and to celebrate. And eventually they had to move that to the town hall because it got so big. Some Christmas dinners had more than 100 people there. And so it showed me that's where Veda got her love of the big family gathering, the big celebration that so many of you got to experience. It was really important for Veda, for my brother and I, to have a true Manitoba experience. And so for as long as I can remember, we traveled back to Bozeman every summer, all the way through my childhood into my teens. We can still proudly identify an auger, a swather, and a combine, no problem. We know the difference between wheat and barley by looking at their beards. Veda loved when we would reminisce about some of the times when we were really young. We used to follow my grandfather, Carl, around like groupies, and he would show us where our food was coming from and how to fix things. We were always quite amazed. Some of the memories that we recently shared, just talking about them with Veda just after Christmas. One was when my brother and I were probably preschool age, and we came across my grandfather delivering a perilously stuck calf, and we were up close, like right there. We're probably 2 and 4 years old, and he described our eyes as like, wide as saucers in wonder and amazement and a little bit of horror, but it was quite the memory, and I very much remember it. And for the young kids there, it's way better than YouTube. It's like real life. The other one that Veda really loved was that there was a time when my grandma May, in a Herculean feat of strength, pulled open a steel leg hold trap intended for gophers, and freed me as I had tried to show my brother very effectively how they work. And I actually still have the crooked finger to prove it, but she somehow pulled this thing apart. So Veda loved those memories and, believed that we should retell them. She had a real reverence for history, and not necessarily only the textbook kind. It was the kind that, gets told around the table by families and friends. It was the kind of history that, remember that time when, and the kind of history that gets passed down through tattered recipe cards and faded pictures and handwritten inscriptions in books. I was thinking about her over the last couple of months, as all of you have been, so much, and thinking about her memories. And I realized that she really did leave and led a beautiful, full, amazing life. And she left quite a roadmap for leading a good life. And so she was an educator. I'm an educator. I'm going to provide some lessons here today. Lesson 1, and she would say this often, that memories form your identity. And it's that that remembering is our responsibility, to honor those who are past, but to guide those who are to come. She believed that very strongly, and we were just talking about that. So as much as Veda loved her loved her Manitoba roots, she loved her BC roots as well. 7040 Barclay Drive, 7040 Barclay Drive. She loved that house. She lived in that house for 55 years, and she would tell anybody who would listen all about it and all the memories. I know that there are many people here today that have a memory or 3 from that house and those times. The fun, the family, the food, the friends, the food. She baked. She was a wonderful cook, but she was a skilled baker. And she when I was growing up, every few Saturdays, she would make this wonderful bread, this heavenly bread. And I can still see her. She had a giant ceramic bowl, and she would knead and spin the bowl, and knead and spin the bowl in this very rhythmic fashion. And then when her hands were totally caked with bread and dough, she would pick up a 20-pound bag of flour with her elbows and pour it into the bowl. I have no idea how she did that, but she did. And she never measured, and the bread was always unbelievable, heavenly. I think it was in her DNA. There were countless dinners. There was book clubs, bridge, cards, canasta. She would host sing-alongs, and there were the famous Renaissance nights where some of you, I know, participated, and some of you are very talented, and there would be musicians and poets and chefs, and some of us, were not as talented, and so we would do, stupid tongue tricks and stupid dog tricks, but everybody was applauded, everybody was adored and welcomed, and we had a lot of fun on those nights. She hosted many Christmas dinners, in fact, all of them, I think. I can't remember a Christmas dinner that she didn't host them. And she would always end with her sincere refrain, and say it with me if you were there: "This is the best Christmas ever. This was the best Christmas ever." No matter what had happened, we could have burnt the turkey, we could have, there could be a snowstorm. It was always the best Christmas ever. Even when hosting moved to my house, she, this past Christmas, 4 months ago, said, "I want to get the turkey." And I said, "All right, okay, great. I will pick you up and we'll go get the turkey." When I got to her apartment, she throws open the fridge and there's a giant turkey sitting in her fridge. Like, incredulous. "How did you get this turkey here?" And she said, "I walked down that steep hill to Fresh Street Market. I went in and said, 'Please give me the biggest turkey you can.' It was 27 pounds. And then she somehow wrestled it into her backpack, tried to get it on her backpack, all 130 pounds of her, and was shuffling out the door with it on her back. And thankfully, the assistant manager stopped her and said, 'Hey, ma'am, maybe you should let us get you a cab.' And so thankfully, she agreed. She was tenacious, but she did bring the turkey. Veda's roadmap for a good life, lesson number 2. Family and friends, they turn your house into a home. Invite many. Pack your fridge, fill your table, and always set an extra plate. As an educator and a counselor and a mediator, Veda was a lifelong learner. Reading was her tool, and she loved to read, and she read everything with equal curiosity and enthusiasm. She read biographies and mysteries and dramatic fiction and poetry and memoirs and philosophy and politics and history. You name it, she read it, and she loved it. And she passed that love of reading on to me, for sure. She gifted me with many books. As a child, I had the Tales of Narnia and the Black Stallion and Nancy Drew in my bookshelf, but she never shied away from also giving more diverse and interesting reads. When I was in grade 6, and I know I was because I told my teacher and she wouldn't believe me, my mother gave me a book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I still believe that I can wake myself up by just setting my mind to it. I don't know that I've slept in. She also fostered the same love of reading in all of her 11 grandchildren, and she loved to read to them. Ask any one of them that are here today. They will have a memory of her reading for longer than they even wanted her to do. She just absolutely loved it. She also liked to introduce them to a variety of topics and different kinds of literature. One night she was babysitting for Pius and I, and this is before Henry was born, and Oscar was 5 and Madeline was 3. And we came home and she said, "Carla, I started reading that book you bought for Oscar, and it's fascinating, it's very intriguing." And Oscar, egged me on, and we read for almost 2 hours. I said, "Well, that's great, amazing. What?" She said, "Well," she furrowed her brow a little bit. She said, "Well, there were a few dark themes, though. There was some," and then she said, "and there was a little bit of violence." And I'm thinking, what book did she start reading? And so they were both, Oscar and Madeline, Oscar and Veda, were very disappointed when I took the Hunger Games away from them. At that time, it was not a popular movie franchise. No one knew anything about it. It was a little-known dystopian novel that I had bought for myself to read, and somehow they got a hold of it, and they were angry that I wouldn't let them finish it. Veda's roadmap, lesson number 3, read widely, read relentlessly, read with abandon. Because, and she said this just after Christmas, curiosity is a form of courage. It will help make sure that the world doesn't get too small. We can't talk about Veda without talking about her extraordinary generosity and her kindness. To her, generosity was not a grand gesture. It was just Tuesday. It was just what she did. She was generous almost to a fault. In fact, we regularly argued over her tipping practices. Unlike probably most people in this room, she did not get tipping fatigue. She went the other way and would often, double or triple whatever she was paying for, and we would argue. Uber was probably, she was most notorious with Uber. No matter what, she would still try to push a 20 across the console when we'd get out. And I'd say, Veda, it's been paid for. You do not need to add extra money. That's okay, I've already left double the tip. I'm like, stop. And she said, but they do such a good job and they come so quickly. And I'm like, they're probably lined up around the corner waiting for you to call. You pay well. A couple of weeks ago, I was in her apartment and I found a letter that she was intending to mail. It was addressed and there was a stamp on it. And so I've since mailed it, but I did read it before I sent it. It was addressed to the couple that were delivering her Globe and Mail every day and her New York Times on Sunday. Dear Anton and Susie, thank you so very much for the excellent postal service. My papers are delivered so well. I really appreciate it. Veda never forgot to notice and to thank people, no matter what. She treated people with such kindness and genuine warmth and dignity. Doesn't matter, in what category you were in terms of connecting with her. One time on a drive home from Whistler, George and Veda picked up a hitchhiker. This is not one of the lessons, don't pick up hitchhikers. But she said, he looked nice, so we stopped. Picked him up. Turned out that he was a young man. He was from Ireland, and he had stayed too long, on the mountain with the drink and a girl, as you do in Whistler. And he was going to miss his flight home to see his mom. And so apparently George and Veda just looked at each other, didn't say anything, and they drove him to the airport from Whistler. When he got out of the car, he was very choked up, and he said, there'll be a song sung for you in Dublin tonight. And thank you. And that is who Veda was and how George was as well. In fact, Catherine, at George's celebration of life 2.5 years ago, aptly described George as a mensch, which is a really beautiful Yiddish word, meaning a good and decent and honorable person, someone to be admired. And I remember thinking at the time, George fits him aptly, absolutely, but it also fits Veda. So they're kind of like this perfect mensch match. They kind of like went together really, really well. Veda gave her time, her energy, her undivided attention, her intellect, her humor, and definitely her resources. Anyone that went out with her knew you had to fight her to try to pay. She would have her credit card out faster than anyone else. In fact, she even dropped her credit card on the bar at my own father, Brian Hotel's celebration of life more than a decade ago to pay the liquor bill. She simply thought nothing of paying for her former husband's final bar tab. She said to me, it's because it was the right thing to do, Carla. And I'm like, she was truly philanthropic. At one point, there were 32, and I'm not exaggerating, 32 charities receiving donations out of her bank account monthly. Causes ranging from housing insecurity to poverty to environmentalism to education, politics. I did tease her, though, because the wild birds of Ontario never ate so well, thanks to Veda's monthly donation. I have no idea where that one came from. She was very dedicated to those wild birds, though. Veda's roadmap, lesson number 4. Give without keeping score. Gratitude is not a transaction. It's the best way to be in the world. Lastly, I just want to make note of Veda's incurable sense of adventure that were equal parts adrenaline and wonderment. She traveled and explored near and far, and always with the opportunity to lead or to learn. My brother and I would see her with her guidebook in hand. As petulant teenagers in the early days, she'd be telling us the difference between Gothic and Byzantine architecture or something, and we would, sort of listen along. On a trip to Bermuda, she rented a mini moke, which is this really cool convertible dune buggy. And she tackled the stick shift, no problem. Farm girl in Manitoba, no problem to drive that standard H. But the left-hand drive with the stick shift proved to be more challenging. We drove on a few sidewalks to the ire of a few street vendors. But she was not fazed. She thought it was fun. And isn't this great? And aren't we lucky to be doing this? She never shied from adventure, and in the last 2 years of her life, she took one of her grandkids, Kai, to see Drake. She said, when I asked her afterwards, how was the concert? She said, well, I liked the music. sort of. But she goes, I couldn't figure out why people kept patting me on the back and giving me the thumbs up. And I was like, really? And she goes, it's not like I did anything special. Like, it's not like I was the oldest person there. Probably not. Anyways. In the last year of her life, she did not stop adventuring. She traveled to Bucerias, Mexico, Montreal, Quebec, Stony Lake, Ontario, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and in BC went to Quesnel, Ucluelet, Seashelt, and Ladysmith. That was all in the last 12 months. She did not stop moving, traveling, learning, and loving to see the people that she loved. And then she moved her home from North Delta to North Van, and she was already building a community here. She had already started attending church here, had made friends. There are people here today that met her here in North Van, that she was building that community. So Veda's roadmap lesson number 5, life is meant to be explored, savored, and lived fully. The world is bigger than our routines, and while comfort is fine, maybe fine, true growth lies beyond its edge. So take more risks, not with hitchhikers, wherever my kids are, but live large. I was born on Veda's 28th birthday. She always said I was the gift, but I think it was the other way around. And as the poem in your program, Mary Oliver, one of her favorite poets, said, she did not just visit this world. She walked in it with wide-eyed wonder and amazement, with joy, courage, and gratitude, and grace and goodwill. And she lived a big, grand life.
Good afternoon. I'm Veda's son, Charles, and Carla's brother. And I won't get into who's smarter, but she told the story about her putting her finger on into a leg hold trap. So but I do remember Grandma Cook coming with just like racing out of the farmhouse, and obviously Carla was in some discomfort. And she reached down and just opened this trap, and she said later, she said, I could never do that in 100 years. So that was adrenaline, but I don't think my sister has put her finger in a leg hold trap since. At least I hope not. Anyways, in his opening remarks, Reverend Eric mentioned the word community, and that was, to me, my mom was a community builder. And Carla talked about, her gift to connect people and groups, and that was Veda. And family was paramount, and yes, we did take many trips to Manitoba, to the farm, and again, those were formative years for me. And riding on the back of a tractor or a swather with my grandfather as we worked the fields was just part of my life, and that was, again, thanks to my mom's recognition that that we needed to be exposed to farm life, and we were, and we would, and lots of different things. I'd come home from, after summer, and what did, write an essay about what you did during your summer. And not only was it riding the tractor and the swather, when the weather didn't cooperate, my grandfather would say, well, we can't get out in the fields today, so we're going to go and we're going to harvest some chickens. And these were chickens that were just running throughout the farm, and my grandpa cook would say, okay, which one? And so I'm like, oh my goodness, he's putting it on me to pick which chicken we're going to off. And so I'd be like, that one, Grandpa. And so he had basically this big coat hanger, metal coat hanger, with a hook in it, and he'd go and he'd hook the feet of the chicken, and the chicken would be flapping it because the chicken knew what was coming. And then he had this, basically a piece of wood, a 2x4, with a nail that was drilled in but bent over. And so he'd put the chicken's neck under this nail, and with an axe would go wonk, and the chicken would be separated from its head. And the saying, run around like a chicken with its head cut off, it's for a reason, because of course the headless chicken would then just go zooming across the farmyard, and my grandfather would say, okay, go get it. And so either my sister or I would run after this headless chicken and pick it up, and it's still, doing this, and I would take it back to the garage where there was a big kettle of boiling water where we'd dip the chicken in, we'd pluck the feathers, and then once it was fully plucked, one of us would run it into my grandma in the kitchen in the farmhouse, where she would turn it into chicken wings. And anyways, it was remarkable. And so that was sort of the dark side of farm life. But another thing we did, and I'm looking at my cousins, because I think it was on their ranch, where we'd go up and it was that time to castrate the bulls. And you'd think you've got like a commercial size, like you think of your Christmas dinner and you got a nutcracker on the table. And this was a commercial version of the nutcracker, and the pun is intended. And so we'd go and we'd castrate these bulls, and of course they didn't like it. And I wasn't fond of sort of the noises they made when the deed was done, but that's that's how we learned about our food channels, where food came from, and again, why were we there doing this? It was my mom knowing that this was good for her kids to see this, to see life, to see sort of food chains, and where chicken came from, where beef came from. So I'm just looking at my kids in the front row, and they're horrified. But just, again, going back to my mom, Veda, she was absolutely, and Carla talked about the dinners, and we'd have, a Christmas dinner, Easter dinner, and she would get the turkey and the ham and roll out the invites. And then she asked me to help set the table, and I said, how many plates? And she just said, just deal them out there. Because at times, I don't think she even knew how many people were coming for dinner. And often there was, it was later, she said, there was over 20 people at dinner. Although I think my sister now has that affliction, because we just had Easter, and and again, it was amazing to see how my mom has raised us to deliver on the 5 lessons that my sister just described. I'm going to miss her. Immensely, and I know looking at my kids and my niece and my nephew, they're going to miss their grandmother. Especially at Christmas, when it's my mom always would take the girls shopping. And I'd say, as they left, I said, Mom, just keep them under control. Because they like to go to Aritzia and Sephora, and I said, they don't have a blank check. And my mom would say, you be quiet. They're my grandkids, and I can spoil them as much as I want. And so anyways, inevitably she did. But having just moved to North Vancouver, I know Graydon said, Dad, I can take my scooter and get to Nanny's front door in 10 minutes. And so again, that's what I'm sad about. She's not here to be part of their lives. Anyways, I think next is Tessa and Henry, 2 of the spoiled, rotten grandchildren.
Hello, are we heard? Okay, today we are here to celebrate a wonderful woman, friend, mother, and sister, but Henry and I are here to celebrate our Nana.
You guys are kind of scary.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. We're asked to share our reflections, our memories of this wonderful woman, and yeah.
Veda can't be described by one memory, and let alone she can't be described by a single word. She was generous, loving, funny, empathetic, and genuinely the best woman we could call her grandmother.
So today we'll share memories and reflection of her life and really describe who she was to our friends, family. Yeah, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start. So my dad kind of pulled away a little bit from my speech. He added onto a little bit, but I'm going to go off kind of some of the things he said. My Nana was a very generous person, and sometimes she was even a little too generous. Maddie and I had a tradition, starting around when I was age 10, that twice a year, around our birthdays and around Christmas, we'd get to go on an biannual shopping spree. And it was a full day, wandering store to store, showing Nana our outfits, almost all our outfits, some of them we kept in the change room. And she was just so happy to see us in front of her, showing her all of these outfits we wanted to choose, whether I was going to choose the blue hoodie or the brown hoodie. And as my dad said, every time before we'd go on these shopping sprees, Maddie and I would get cornered by our parents, by Carla and Charles, telling us to go easy on Nana and her credit card. But as soon as we would get in the car with Veda, she would turn to us and tell us not to listen to them, that it was our day with them. And that is when I learned that I don't always have to listen to my parents. But I didn't come up here to talk about the shopping or the purchases, although it was nice, because it wasn't all about the shopping. These trips, I not only brought home stuff physically, but I brought home stuff in memory and in my heart. The first thing I got from these trips was a connection with my cousin, who I can now call one of my best friends, because these days with her of sharing different outfits together, I see her right there, and these days of just speaking to each other and having these days to look forward to every twice a year brought us closer, and I couldn't ask for a better cousin, Maddie. She also taught me how important generosity is. Nana was very generous to all of us, whether it was in Euclid, when Maddie and I shared a room with her, telling us that we had to sleep in the master bedroom and she would sleep on the pull-out couch, there was no other exception, or in the car, when she would refuse to sit in the front seat, instead sit in the back seat while Maddie and I chatted up front. But my favorite part of it all was when we would walk ahead of Nana, chattering to ourselves, walking down the streets of Park Royal, or Tawasin, that one time. And I would take a second and turn back to see my Nana beaming, the happiest I've ever saw her. Because for her, it wasn't about the tapping of her credit card. It was about looking and truly seeing me and Maddie together, connecting and spending time together. And we would just sit there, whether it was in the booth at the restaurant afterwards or walking ahead of her, just talking about our daily lives, talking about things that had happened to us, and she wouldn't say anything. She would just listen and smile, and I would look back, and I would see her beaming. And so, the most important thing I learned from my grandmother is generosity, but the thing even more important than that is how important it is to listen.
That was really good. Can you take that? Hello, everyone. When I was a kid, my grandma once told me, when I was doing public speaking, to imagine everyone to be naked. But it's really weird, especially with the front row being my family. It's really weird. But yeah, here goes nothing. Still weird. Strong, generous, caring. Words you guys have heard so repetitively throughout the day. These words come to my mind when speaking about my grandma. 16 years I knew her. I got to see the last stages of her life while she watched my beginning. She never missed a Christmas, a birthday, or an Easter. She knew the importance of being present, and that is so powerful. Being there in support of your friends and family at their highest and their lowest is truly important. Veda was always there, always very accepting, no matter what. I'm going to miss the nights where my parents were away and Veda would take over the house. The food, it was amazing. Not like the save-on pizzas I eat. We would talk late at night about the most spontaneous things, but she would never fail to get sentimental. She liked to tell me it was never too late to do the right thing. And I can't agree more. The last time I got to sit down one-on-one and speak with Veda was last Christmas. We were cooking the ham at our condo. We were talking, as we do, about weird ideas and things that just don't matter. And for whatever reason, I asked her for some wisdom. What did she take away from her life? Veda paused and said, "Do the things you love, and don't be afraid to be a little selfish sometimes." I laughed a little. I was a little confused. Veda was not a selfish person. And for her to tell me that was very surprising. I cherish this moment, but ever since writing this speech, I've thought deeply about our moment. I believe now I have an understanding of what she may have meant. Veda, of course, was not a selfish woman, but she had her priorities straight. She knew what she loved, and she wouldn't let anything get in the way of that. Veda loved her family. She loved her friends. Nothing could ever take that away from her. Even now, she soars above us, watching us, pushing us on. Sorry. I take away from this to live head on. Try and break free from others' thoughts. Try and break free from others' thoughts and do what makes me happy. That was what was important in Veda's eyes, happiness. And she lived a very happy life. I remember the moments, but what I will remember the moments, but what I really remember will be the little things. Veda laughing at Oscar's smart remarks, dumb jokes about me being a worse brother. Maddie, she would cry when Maddie sang. But most importantly, the way she treated us. Always patient and so loving. We're going to miss her so very much. Honestly, I know the world will miss her. Honestly, I know the world will miss her too. Veda had a beautiful soul, and today we say goodbye to a spectacular woman. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm limping a little. I broke my ankle in December and I'm still paying for it, so a little unsteady. Yeah, my name is Dorothy Watts, and I was a longtime colleague and a longtime friend of Veda's, and it's hard to follow all the wonderful sentiments that have been given this afternoon. Lovely testament to a lovely person. When I think about how Veda lived her life, both professionally and personally, I think of a quote attributed to Robert Heinlein, the science fiction writer. He said, "When sampling life, take big bites. Moderation is for monks." And Veda took big bites in life. She lived a big life filled with a big extended family, many friends, lots of adventures, and many accomplishments. I remember when I first met Veda nearly 40 years ago. She had just finished her master's degree in counseling psychology at UBC, and she'd applied for a job as an elementary counselor in Delta. I was on the interviewing panel. When she walked into the interview room, a big burst of energy, enthusiasm, and warmth entered the room with her. She was a star and continued to be a star her whole professional career. One of her colleagues remarked that she helped to set the gold standard for elementary counseling in Delta. Many students, teachers, parents, counseling colleagues, and administrators breathed more easily because of Veda's wise counsel and her good judgment. Beyond her counseling duties, Veda was a sexual abuse prevention coordinator, and she was also a general fixer, often sorting out difficulties and conflicts on staff within the school district. She was like a one-person flying squad. In addition, she and I introduced some pro-social programs in Delta. Also, Veda was also a member of the BCTF's internal mediation service, which offered assistance to teachers and schools throughout the province who were in conflict. Veda and I offered so many presentations, mediations, and seminars in conflict resolution and communication that we were often called by each other's names. So I got called Veda quite a lot, and Veda called Dorothy quite a lot. And in fact, at one gathering, I thought I was going to have to show the superintendent my driver's license to prove that I was actually Dorothy and not Veda. But I always was so flattered to be taken for Veda. It was big flattering for me. Because of Veda's risk-taking and optimism, we sometimes got into some very interesting situations. I can think of one in particular where we were to present in a school gym. I hate school gyms, but we were to present to some teachers, parents who were waiting for parent-teacher conferences or something. And there were children coming and going out, people falling off chairs. The PA would come on every once in a while to say that there was a change of time or something. And then when they started playing grand opera, I think we decided that was enough. But we had another interesting one I remember was that we had offered to, or applied to present at an international professional development conference for educators. This was a long time ago. And we went to the first day of sessions, and it was just at the advent of PowerPoint. And Veda and I, to say that we had low tech was really optimistic. I think we were using overhead projectors, and everybody else had, all the Americans had these wonderful PowerPoint presentations. So we got together in the bar of the Pan Pacific the day before, and we stewed about how we were going to make it really interesting. But anyway, we worried in vain because it went very well. And I always knew I could rely on Veda's warmth and charm and her general wisdom to get us through any dicey situations. As a friend, Veda was big-hearted, forgiving, and adventuresome. She was an avid reader, and about 30 years ago, she introduced me to the Manawaca Book Club, which she co-founded with Judy Allen, Margaret Ross, Donna Britton, and Cecilia Burgart. For about the last 25 years, we went to the Seashell Writers Festival. It was a highlight for both of us. And we often, with Chris Barnes, hosted the famous Happiest of Happy Hours, which were a slightly chaotic but very merry gathering of friends and acquaintances, sometimes strangers, to talk about books, authors, along with a large dollop of wine and gossip thrown in. We had a lovely time. She also loved Yellow Point Lodge on Vancouver Island. We went there 3 times a year. She loved meeting old friends from the year before, and she took such delight in the flora and fauna. I have a lovely photo of her kissing Uncle Claude. So Uncle Claude, in case you're wondering, is an old-growth sentinel fir tree. Lovely photo. In closing, I have a quote from Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the Secretary General of the United Nations in the 1950s, and I think it fully sums up the way Veda embraced life. He wrote in his book, Markings, "For all that has been, thanks. For all that will be, yes."
Thank you so much to all of the family members who have contributed. It's one of the beautiful things. We always learn something new, don't you? From even if you're within the family, it's like or retelling of stories. And so I'm also from a huge clan back in Newfoundland, and whenever we tell stories now, we always have to say what I remember is, because certainly a sibling or a relative or someone else says that's not the way it was. And I say back in Newfoundland because I obviously have a little bit of a connection with my brother Pius over here, who I only met a couple of weeks ago, but I love the little Newfie, and I understand Veda loved it too. So God bless you, me old trout. God bless all of you for being here and offering these gifts to your community. And Madeline, over to you.
The falling leaves drift by my window. The falling leaves of rotting gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburnt hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song, but I'll miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall, since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song, but I'll miss you most of darling, when autumn leaves start to fall, I'll miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful gift you have been blessed with. Please pray with me. Eternal and loving God, we entrust Veda to the memories of each person here in this place and to the memories of many who just couldn't be here with us in person today. We entrust her, God, to your unfailing love. We entrust her to your abiding compassion. And into the hands of a loving Spirit, we commend Veda. We celebrate our belief that she is now at peace and experiencing in joyful spirit the beauty of life beyond this life. Amen. We're going to have a remembering of pictures and songs, so you'll get to experience some. I think Oscar is the one who put this together, and over to you.
Hey everyone. As you've already heard in plenty, my grandmother was a lot of things. Hardworking, selfless, supportive, occasionally stubborn. But above all, she was kind, and she lived a very full life. As a testament to that, with the help of some of the family, I put together a short video containing photos from throughout her life, as well as a short audio clip from a conversation me and her had about a month before she passed. Yeah.
Well, that's a keeper, hey? I'm going to do a closing prayer and offer a blessing. And just before I do that, just to make sure that you know the family invites you to stay, and there will be some treats and coffee and tea downstairs. The easiest way is to come along here and go down, follow a little staircase down. Please be aware of this. I don't know why this was ever created. It's this big tripping hazard all along here, this little stage. It freaks me out, and so take care of your friends so you don't step up over that or bump into it. Another way, if you want a bit of fresh air before making your way down, if you go out the back stairs, just come around the corner, so whichever works for you. And there are washrooms downstairs, and I think that's all you need to know about getting there. Would you please pray with me? Loving God, you inspire us with the lives of those we love. You show us your strength through them. We thank you for giving us Veda and for her life among us, for the joy and fun and care and meaning that she brought into our lives, for the many lessons that she taught in taking pleasure in the simple and beautiful things in life, for her appreciation of her family and friends, and for the love and the joy that she shared so freely. And now, O God, as we celebrate Veda's life, we ask for your strength to live powerful lives in her memory. When we lose one we love, our hearts ache. And so we ask your care for all those Veda loved and cared about. As one poet wrote about the mystery of death, perhaps they're not stars in the sky, but rather openings where our loved ones shine down to let us know that they are happy. And may we continue in prayer, my friends, all day long. And I offer you this blessing from the words of St. John Chrysostom. She whom we love and lose is no longer where she was before. She is now wherever we are. And so we leave this time together with thanks for every good memory that is ours with Veda. I know you will not forget her, neither will we, nor will we forget those that she loved. Her spirit will live on in each one of us, and hope will go with us as we head out into the world, holding our heads high, held in God's unconditional and everlasting love. May it be so. Amen. God bless you. Make your way downstairs. And I'm going to end in one more little Newfieism that my brother Blaine would often say. You don't have to stay here. I got that wrong. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here either. God bless you. So around whichever way makes your way downstairs. Got that one wrong, didn't I? What is it? Oh, long, sorry. What do you do?